I'd like to call to order the March 24th meeting of the Shelby Township Planning Commission. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Dallo?
Here.
Ms. DeSico? Here. Ms. Casali?
Here.
Mr. Bernardi? Absent. Mr. Wexmonski?
Here.
Mr. Apone? Absent. Mr. Vire? Absent. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. First, if everyone's had an opportunity to review the agenda, I'll entertain a motion.
Chairman,
Rex Monsky.
there's a item on the agenda, old business rezoning petition 114. I didn't get any supplement items for that in my packet. Is that on the agenda?
It is on the agenda, and,
Did everybody else get?
yeah, I received I have a packet.
Here, you can give that one to him. Wait. Thank you. I gave him one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
All done, thank you.
all right. Anything else?
That can we move to approve them?
Move to approve it. Thank you, Mr. Dalu.
Support?
And support by Moore. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. First item is approval of the minutes from the February 24th regular meeting. If there are no corrections or comments,
So moved.
Support.
Dalu, support by DeSico. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Under correspondence, we received a letter from the city of Troy regarding their master plan update. Mr. Nguyen, any comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is a standard letter expressing the City of Troy's intent to prepare a new master plan. I think I've mentioned on a number of occasions, state law requires that notice to encourage cooperation between communities. We will have an opportunity to comment on the plan once they've completed it. So motion to receive and file would be appropriate.
Good. Any questions for the planner? Hearing none. Motion to receive and file.
Motion to receive and file.
Moore, support by
Support.
Dalu. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, under old business, if you recall, at our last meeting, we reviewed text amendments to the township zoning ordinances, and there were several questions, and so it was tabled for Mr. Nguyen to go back and take a look at.
Yes.
So I will reconvene that public hearing and ask Mr. Nguyen, as the representative of the township, the petitioner, to sort of bring us up to speed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had that public hearing last month, as you mentioned, and there were several people in the audience who commented on one of the provisions in particular, that of the firewood storage, and they made some very good comments. We took those into account, and you can see we've made some corrections based on those comments. There were some other comments that were made by several other members, which we've adjusted, taking those into account, some editing changes. The Zoning Board of Appeals had a chance to review it, and we had made some adjustments to those as well. So I'm very comfortable that unless there's some additional comments, I think we're ready to pass this on to the Township Board for their consideration.
Okay, very good. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to comment on these? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, I'll come back to the board. Is there anyone from the board that wishes to have any comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a comment to Mr. Nguyen. I like how in section 5.07 on the performance standards, you combined the noise levels into a more concise format, and then you took Article 11 for industrial and combined that in with the performance standards also. I noticed they sort of mirror the City of Troy noise levels. I spent some time over the past month with their planning commission and researching noise levels of construction machinery. So I think I agree with it. I like that it's concise, and I think it's a change.
We were having trouble enforcing it because it was hard to understand. If we can't understand it, it's hard to compel other people to abide by it.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, one other thing we did is the people that spoke at the last meeting, I did send them a letter giving them copies of the changes.
Okay, yeah, that was included in our packet. Thank you. Okay, was there anyone else?
I'm sorry, I have one more comment. I did not know that the sign walkers, the people that hold up signs in front of businesses were not allowed. Is that new to the ordinance? Or is
It's
that?
new to the ordinance, yeah.
Oh, it is new.
And the
Okay.
reason we put it in there, admittedly, it may be a little difficult to enforce, but I've seen one particular business has a person standing almost in the intersection on a corner, And it makes me feel pretty nervous that that could be, I wouldn't want my son or daughter out there doing it. I think it's enough to at least deter them, perhaps. So
But
it's
typically, it
just-
looks like they're 14 or 15 years old.
Yeah, it's a little scary.
Yeah, okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, as a reminder that our decision is based on the following, our recommendation to the board, to the township board is based on the following. The practicality of this request and the effect on the surrounding area. Do current growth and development patterns warrant? Yeah, well, actually, these aren't appropriate. are they,
Probably
Mr.
not.
Wynn?
I just
Yeah.
think, I think the motion I gave would probably be sufficient.
Okay, very good. So, to the board, anyone wish to make a motion?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Casali?
I move to recommend approval to the Township Board of Rezoning Application Number 1-14, proposing multiple changes to the zoning ordinance for the following reasons. Number one, the proposed changes are part of an ongoing effort by the township to update zoning standards to reflect current development practices. And number two, the change will improve the clarity and understanding of the ordinance.
Support.
Okay, been moved and supported. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Casali?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Dalu?
Yes.
Commissioner DeSico? Yes. Commissioner Rexmansky?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, next item is under new business. Mr. Nguyen, you want to tee this up for
Sure.
us?
This plan, this is for Lancaster at Central Park. It's in the Central Park Planned Unit Development west of Van Dyke, north of 22 Mile Road. That was a planned unit development that was approved by the township in 2002 and 2005. I've had some discussions with Lombardo companies, particularly Greg Windingland, who's here tonight. They're proposing some changes. The original plans that we approved in 2002 and 2005 included two different types of a multiple or attached product. They want to come back now and introduce a single-family product. I think it's a really good plan, but before we had an opportunity to review the final site plan and come with a public hearing, I thought it'd be nice if Greg could come and kind of introduce that to the commission so you have some familiarity with it, because this was a pretty complex project back in 2002, and I thought a little bit of, by way of introduction, might be helpful when it comes before you more formally.
Okay, you want to touch briefly on what the process is going to be going
Yeah,
forward with
it'll
this?
be a public, it will be like a special land use. We'll have a public hearing. There'll be a lot of notices, obviously, because we have most of the people in Central Park will probably fall within that 300 feet, and then review the site plan as well. So,
Okay. Mr. Windingland, would you like to
I would, thank
give
you.
us an update?
Good evening. Greg Windingland with Lombardo Homes, 51237 Danview Technology Court, Shelby Township, Michigan, 48315. I promised Glenn I would try to be about 10 minutes or less, so that's what I'm going to try to do. With your permission, could I hand something out?
Sure.
thank you.
Cross with Glenn either, you know. So he doesn't want to cross you.
No.
You forgot the guys in the booth. No, I'm kidding.
That's right, I think I'll wait. Anyway, as Glenn mentioned, we are excited about coming back for this project. We had part of it approved a few years ago when the economy was still going downhill. We thought with Shelby Township and Utica Schools, this would still be a community that would be vibrant, and as it turned out, it wasn't. And like so many other companies, we had all we could do staying in business, let alone opening new communities and that. So ultimately, it sat on the shelf. The approvals that we did have in place expired, so we're back now to try to revitalize that, as well as we've added some additional acreage since then. So what I wanted to show you, if we could, on, I guess I'll call it the color aerial photograph side, the area that's in yellow that reads up and down Kensington at Central Park Phase 2, That was originally, and I guess still currently, site plan approved for 72 units of multifamily, which would have been an addition to the Kensington at Central Park component. That is the component that Lombardo was the developer of. It was our typical bread and butter, 4 units in a 4-building configuration, in a motor court configuration. We've done thousands of them. It was, back at the time, it was a very popular product, and we did several of these. We were one of the 4 component developers, with the Manors being one of the other components, the duplex area, and then there were 2 single-family components. Pulte did a little bit larger lot size, and then there were 3 or 4 builders that did the Meadows, which was a little bit more traditional single-family lot size. So the Kensington was one of those components. Back in, I think it was early 2010, we had received the site plan approval to convert this yellow area into a single-family configuration. It was going to yield about 53 single-family home sites. That's when everything stopped, and kind of that's where we had left it. Since then, we've picked up it says 12 acres, but I think it's closer to about 13.4 acres. But we picked up the acreage to the east of that, abutting it, that is outlined in kind of that pink color. We picked that up. That is currently part of PUD number 2 for Central Park. And if I'm not mistaken, the density on that, somewhere around 129 units or something like that, is what may have been approved for that. What we're looking to do is combine those 2 areas into one single-family community that would have a density of, we won't know until we get through the process, but somewhere around 116 home sites. So 116 single-family home sites. They will be very harmonious with the other single-family home sites within the Central Park community. We've had discussions with the boards. There's 5 boards at Central Park. There's the 4 sub-associations, as well as the Master Association. We've met with the boards back in December of 2013. In this room, we invited all the residents of Central Park to attend an informational meeting where we showed them information similar to this, showed them where we had been, where we thought the right way to go was, things like that. And then 2 of the board presidents are represented here tonight as well. We've been working with them on making sure that not only the cost sharing through the master community is fair and appropriate, we want to make sure that they're on board with everything that we're doing. And I don't know if there's an opportunity to speak, but I think they are. So that's where we're at with it. If you flip it over to the other side, that's the configuration that we've come up with as a preliminary layout. We're still working through some engineering issues in that. We think this is very close to the layout that we'll go with. There may be some last-minute tweaks based on utility issues, things like that, when that part of the process comes along. We've worked with the fire marshal, and the street names that are shown on here we've had approved. We've tried to work with the water and sewer department. The utilities were put in with phase 2 of Kensington at Central Park, so there's underground utilities in there that we're going to have to retrofit. So we met with the water and sewer department and started the discussions on how we transition from the utilities that are in the ground to the utilities that we'll need. We hope to do this in 3 phases, and the red broken lines kind of represent those phases. Phase 1 being a relatively small phase, as that's something that we'd be able to get off the ground this summer. And then phase 2, we would hope to complete by the end of the year. And sales, that was maybe 10 minutes, maybe a little less. I would be more than glad to answer any questions or provide any additional comments if I could.
Okay. To the board, any questions?
I have a quick question, Mr. Whittingland. The picture that the original elevation in here is when it was a multifamily, and then you have a picture of, is this the proposed, but this is attached, so this is old, correct?
Mr. Chairman, that was, I provided that to you. There are 2 different elevations in there. Those are the ones that were originally included as part of the PUD.
Okay.
So they're
I
both
was
an
confused.
attached product. Now they're talking about detached single-family.
Right, that's why I was confused. Okay, thank you.
So like 60 by 120 lots roughly?
Yeah, closer to 64.
Okay.
64 by 120, it fits for some garage extensions, gives us some opportunities for a little bigger footprint home.
Okay. That's what about an R1C, Mr. Reed?
It's smaller than that, but it's consistent with what we've allowed in there.
Okay.
What I like about this one is it improves the continuity of the single family. You have mostly single family south of Central Park North Drive, and this extends that. As you got closer to Van Dyke previously, the other plan showed gradual increased density, which is a good product way to do it as well, but I think this is just a huge improvement.
Mm-hmm. Be nice to get those baseball fields cleaned up, too, the old ones.
Yeah, the ball diamonds, everything's gone, all the equipment's gone.
Yeah, but you can still
But it'd be
get it.
nice to clean it up,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, still get it. Okay. Any other questions? For the 5 more minutes of Mr. Windingland's time, do any of the associations want to comment, or? There'll be plenty of opportunity, as there always is, but,
Mike Grobel, 49997 Lexington Avenue East, Board President, the Manners Condominiums, and we've been working with Greg on this. We're running a set of resolutions to each of the boards. It's in the process of being reviewed and signed right now, indicating our general acknowledgement of what's being proposed and support for it. So we think this is a step in the right direction.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Grobel, can you sign in, please? Thank you.
Okay. If there are no other questions, thank you. And good luck. Well, we'll see you. Next is Planning Director's Report. Mr. Wynn.
2 items, Mr. Chairman. The first is the standard monthly administrative approval report. We had 13 signs and 3 temporary use applications last month, so that's pretty standard. What I really wanted to spend a little more time with is on the memo I gave you on the master plan update. State law requires that every 5 years, communities reassess their master plans. Either you adopt a new plan or you amend your existing plan. It doesn't say you have to start all over, but it has to say you have to assess it and put in the minutes what you felt was necessary to do. The last plan, and I think only maybe a few of you were participating in that process, was adopted in 2009. So our 5-year extension runs out in 2014. So now that last plan was prepared during a time of economic downturn. There hasn't been a lot of land use or new development changes that have occurred since that time that would render our current plan obsolete. However, there are a number of sections in the plan that would benefit from, I think, revisiting. So they started out on page 1 and 2 of the memo. We've identified in that existing plan I think 6 different challenges and opportunities, and I think those are a good starting point for determining where we jump off for this. And those include preserving open space and natural features, planning for a diverse housing market, upgrading older retail corridors, limiting further reduction in the industrial tax base, coordinating land use and transportation, and defining township character. And those, I think, remain relevant, and you'll see as we get to the plan elements how those will be continued or discussed later on. The typical master plan includes 3 major components. One is existing conditions analysis, a second is goals and objectives, and a third is plan recommendations. On page 3, you've kind of identified the existing conditions. That's the section of the plan that really provides you kind of a snapshot of existing characteristics as they exist today. And typically we look at how we sit in the region, the physical features, what are those, how do those impact development, existing land use and population characteristics. Well, the physical features haven't changed. Our regional setting hasn't changed, but we will use this opportunity to go back and look what our neighbors have done. I mean, have their master plans changed? Have their zoning ordinance changed? How does that relate to what we're going to do? Existing land use, we did a complete survey of the community in 2009 or 2008. Using 2012 aerial photographs, we'll go back and update that. It's easy enough to do really at our desktop. And population characteristics, since that plan was done, the census has come out. So we'll have updated information from the census every 10 years. So we will put that all together in a new package and have a chance to revisit that to say, what does that mean for our future? The goals and objectives typically is a process where we have some interactive methods of engaging the public in the presentation. We're required to have a public hearing at the end of the process, but we'd like to engage the public in some meaningful dialogue about the plan at the beginning of the process. Jerry, you may remember we did that. We did the last plan. We had a visioning session over, I think, at Eisenhower High School. And we invited a lot of people. We had, I think, 60 people or 70 people showed up. And it was meaningful, but it wasn't quite as engaging as I would have hoped. And maybe we'll do an online component this year, something interactive to get people, give them an opportunity to participate, even though they might want to come to a meeting. So we'll look at that opportunity. And then what I envisioned for the plan itself was a series of mini plans dealing with each of these different topic areas. The first is the Shelby Center Design Plan, which deals with the whole area of urban, our community character. In 1999, we adopted a plan for the area around the intersection of 24 Mile Road and Van Dyke. It was, I think, reasonably successful. We even won an award for it. We adopted some zoning ordinance changes, and some of that development occurred, as you can see, but it never was finished. And part of that's due to the economy. I think part of it might due to maybe some unrealistic expectations on our part of what the market was going to happen to the market. So we want to revisit that. And the DDA, which is our Downtown Development Authority, has asked to participate. And they said, they'd like to work with the Planning Commission. I think I introduced this to you back in November. They've even authorized some money to do that part of the plan. So we might start that one independently of everything else. But that would be an opportunity for our two groups to work together on something, I think, a meaningful update of that plan. The Northeast Area Development Plan is the 2 square miles north of 25 Mile Road between Hayes and Jewell are largely undeveloped, particularly the most Section 1, which is the northeasterly portion. That area is vacant. It has a lot of natural features through it. It has a north branch of the Clinton River. This may be an area where it would be interesting to explore some different development options that might be appropriate other than your standard single-family subdivisions, maybe some single-family with cluster development and a lot more open space. So we think that would be useful to explore. Related to that would be planning for the diverse housing market. Are there types of housing that are going to be required in this community to meet demographic changes that we need to account for? And that would be an opportunity to introduce that in that area. State law now requires us to do a complete streets plan, which for us is not as complicated as it might be for a community which has substantial bus or other forms of transportation, but it's really meant to integrate different forms of transportation, and we would probably consider inviting the Sidewalk Committee to work with us on this because they're real involved with extending sidewalks throughout the community. The retail needs study, I think I mentioned in one of the last meetings, we are always struggling with the question of how much retail do we have and how much retail do we need. We did a very comprehensive survey of all retail last year, but I can't tell you if that's too much or not enough, or if it's the right kind. We'll really want to engage some market research people to come in and evaluate that. And then finally, and we'd probably work with our new Economic Development Committee on that. That's something, I think, another opportunity to link with another local group that's already doing some work in that area. And the last is the Vistian redevelopment plan. The building's gone. Occasionally, we have some inquiries about the site. We're working very closely with the county and formed our own internal subcommittee to deal with that site. But it might be useful to, while we're waiting for somebody to come knock on our door, to kind of explore what might be some reasonable reuse opportunities for that site, do some kind of grand thinking about what would be best placed there. So that's my template for the plan. And obviously it could change, but I'm still working on some scheduling and some budget questions. We do have the opportunity for the DDA to kick in portion of that. We have access to a college student, a planning student who wants to come in this summer. He might help do some of the background information, collect some of that. We also have a little bit of money in the budget. So I envision this might take 18 to 24 months, but we do it a couple steps at a time or a couple products at a time and keep moving forward in this process. So there's still room to adjust this, but I'm kind of looking for some broad support from the commission before I go and share this with the township board.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Nguyen?
Chairman.
Hello.
Mr. Nguyen, for the Vistian, what are your vision? What are you expecting to see in that site personally?
Well, it's still zoned industrial.
I
And
understand.
I believe that at the end of the day, encouraging some industrial on that site is still the best use for it. Some commercial might be appropriate near the intersection of 23 and Mound Road along that frontage. But I think in the long run, Mr. Dallow, some sort of industrial might be best. But this would be an opportunity to brainstorm what kind of industrial, how could it be arranged on the site. We still get a lot of inquiries, and the inquiries are for industrial. So it'd be, again, a chance to brainstorm a little bit about that. the best opportunity for jobs and for tax base would be industrial use of the property.
Yeah, and I think there may be some covenants on that property that would prevent any, residential or any other type uses too.
When we did the last plan, we had it as a redevelopment site, a mixed use, and the Ford representative that we talked to said they didn't want it portrayed that way. And I guess we can see now why that was the case, because there are some physical features on that site that probably would not lend itself to industrial, for residential.
With that, anything for good and welfare? Now's the
Mr. Chair,
time.
I'm sorry, I have one more question for Mr. Nguyen. How does can you repeat the process of updating the master plan? I know, do you do most of the work with your team, or are we involved? I know you want input from the community, but typically, how does that work?
It's a good question. It's really your prime responsibility, the commission, to prepare the plan. In the past, we've hired outside planners to assist us to do it, because the scope of that is more than we can handle in-house. I mean, I've done dozens of master plans in my career, but don't have the time to do it start to finish. But last time, you may recall, I think Jerry may recall this, we did a lot of the work in-house. We did the existing land use survey, all the population, all those background reports, we wrote them, and we saved $20,000 by doing them in-house. So I envision if we could do a little of that, hire a consultant to come in and do the community visioning, some of the graphic, presentations, some things that we don't have the capabilities of in-house. So it would be done, with the interaction of your group, maybe we break out into some subcommittees to do some of these sections individually. But you'll have some outside consulting help, the involvement of some other groups like the DDA and the Sidewalk Committee and the general public as well. So I'm still trying to think through some of the logistics of that. But it's your plan. You have the full authority to adopt the plan. So it's kind of fun to maybe get away from the site plan review and the sort of normal activities. Unfortunately, those normal activities kind of pattern our agendas and our days. I mean, we have very little time when you're at the counter every day answering site plan questions to deal with this. That's why we typically farm this out to some other people to help us.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, one more motion.
Motion to adjourn, please.
Support.
Moved and supported, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're adjourned.